Welcome to the Florida Gardener Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer, and today is all about the interesting and colorful plants you can decorate shady areas of your landscape with. Whether you have a large tree that casts shade, a north-facing bed, or a covered patio or balcony, these plants thrive in low-light conditions, both in-ground and in a pot. So first up are caladiums. Oh my goodness, caladiums. If you love fun foliage or cottage-style gardens, you need caladiums. There is something so whimsical about these multicolored plants. They have heart-shaped leaves, and they're actually related to elephant ears. I like to think of caladiums as the elegant or more dainty cousin to the elephant ear, which usually has a thicker, more fleshy leaf. Caladiums come in a plethora of colors. Each leaf looks hand-painted with striking combinations of green, white, pink, and red. These tropical shade dwellers create a glorious display, rivaling any flowering plant. You can purchase them as a bulb or as a rooted plant. They're really easy to grow from bulbs. So if you want a better or more unique selection, I would probably order bulbs. For those interested, there is a huge caladium festival every summer, usually in July, in Lake Placid, Florida. Just Google Caladium Festival, Lake Placid, and it'll come up. They sell tons of different caladiums, both as bulbs and rooted mature plants. All right, the next group of plants on the list is philodendrons. Yes, I'm talking monsteras, split-leaf philodendrons, and even philodendron Congo rojo. All the large, lush, green foliage your planty heart could ever desire. And if you want more color, try philodendron Prince of Orange. I nicknamed this guy Fruit Punch because it gives me all the fruity, tropical poolside drink vibes. The leaves start off brilliant orange, then transition through shades of yellow, copper, and lime, eventually maturing to a deep green. The ever-changing color display makes this one a showstopper. We are so fortunate here in Florida because most well-known houseplants naturally grow in low-light, humid environments, like the understory of a tropical rainforest. So our shady Florida garden beds and patios provide very similar growing conditions. We are one of the only places in the United States where plants such as philodendrons grow effortlessly outside 365 days a year. Next up is the ground orchid. Now, don't panic because you heard the word orchid. These terrestrial orchids are nothing like the ones you see at the big box garden center or at the grocery store. The orchid we are most familiar with is the moth orchid. We are not talking about this guy. No. Instead, let me introduce you to the Philippine ground orchid. It is a terrestrial orchid, meaning it grows in normal soil in a landscape bed or in a pot, just like all your other plants. Now, moth orchids, the ones we see all the time at the grocery store and garden center, are known as epiphytes. They prefer to cling to a tree, or if you keep them potted, they prefer a special orchid pot with lots of holes and a pine bark mix. I'm sure you've seen this. These types of orchids will die if you cover their roots with normal soil. Anyway, because the Philippine ground orchid is a terrestrial orchid, you can treat it like a normal plant. This really expedites the learning curve. The Philippine ground orchid's botanical name, I am not going to pronounce, but it's spelled Spathoglottittis, and then the second part of that is Plicata. This plant grows about a foot tall and spreads slowly. It has the look of a wildflower with blooms in purple, peach, yellow, or multicolored. The one that I see most often at the nursery and in landscapes is purple, and it is gorgeous. The arched leaves have a pleated look similar to like baby palm fronds. These orchids are really great in the landscape when grouped together as a ground cover under trees. They also work in the front of a border bed, along a walkway, or around the base of a small palm. All right, moving on to the leopard plant, aka Farfugium. That's Farfugium. Fugium. The leopard plant has yellow flowers and large, round, fleshy leaves. The leaves can grow to be as big as your hand fully extended. The best way to describe the leopard plant is it sort of looks like a terrestrial version of the lily pad. It certainly reminds me of some type of pond or bog plant. And then it has these gorgeous, tall, daisy-like yellow flowers that shoot up out of it. It really is a unique, fun plant. It's native to Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, where it's found in warm and moist areas, such as along the coast, streams, and riverbeds. And although it's not prehistoric, this plant also reminds me of something you might see in Jurassic Park. I can totally envision a T-Rex stomping through a large clump of leopard plants. The next shade plant on the list is the variegated tricolor ginger. This pretty lady also goes by the name Stromanthe triostar. Many plants are grown for their beautiful flowers, but plants like Stromanthe triostar really impress people with their fabulous foliage. It's so impressive that it was named a Florida Plant of the Year by the FNGLA, aka Florida's Nursery Growers and Landscape Association. The tops of the leaves are variegated white and green, while the undersides are a brilliant reddish pink. This plant sets the bar high when it comes to striking, eye-catching foliage. The next plant on the list is variegated shell ginger. Now, talk about low maintenance interest for the shade garden. Variegated shell ginger dominates the tropical shade garden with attractive striped green and yellow leaves and a wide spreading habit. It works planted around trees or palms, a filler for a corner bed, or an anchor for a mixed garden. It does an excellent job when it comes to low maintenance color and impact for shaded gardens. Alrighty, so now let's discuss bromeliads. Oh my goodness, bromeliads. There are so many to choose from. This is a plant that people either love or hate. If you hate them, I want to challenge you on this. It's probably not the bromeliad that you hate, but rather how they have been presented to you in the landscape. Don't believe me? Google image Disney Polynesian Village Resort plants and prepare to be disproven. Regardless of how you feel about Disney, you can't argue that they create some top-notch landscapes. Again, that's Disney Polynesian Village Resort plants. You're welcome. Now, some of my favorite bromeliads are the ones with pink centers. For example, the puppy love bromeliad has a stunning hot pink center, and the cotton candy bromeliad has, you guessed it, a yummy light pink center. And you guys, these bromeliads stay pink. The ones that lose their color quickly are the Guzmania bromeliads. Those are the ones that have the flower spike that comes out of the center. You see them all the time at the grocery store and at the garden center. I don't recommend planting those in the landscape because once the flower dies, you're left with a bland green bromeliad. Their foliage isn't impressive. Now compare that to the puppy love and cotton candy bromeliads, which are both part of the Neoregelia family, or Neo for short. Neoregelia bromeliads are bred for their long-lasting, striking foliage, not flowers. Anyway, combine Neo Puppy Love or the Neo Cotton Candy bromeliad with some lush green ferns and oh my. The soft fern fronds paired with the rigid bromeliad foliage is a match made in heaven. It just works. The textures contrast so well. I actually used this combination in a project for a shopping center in Jupiter. You can check it out on my website if you want to get some ideas. rootsredefined.com. Click on the previous projects tab and then scroll down to the job titled Donald Ross Village. All right, the next shade plant on the list is crotons. This is another one that you either hate or love. And if you hate it, I'm going to tell you the same thing I said about bromeliads. You probably don't actually hate the plant, you just dislike how it's been presented in the landscape. Also, I think us Floridians are just tired of seeing the exact same type of croton over and over again. There are hundreds of varieties of crotons, you guys, each with its own unique leaf shape, color pattern, and overall appearance. I bet you wouldn't even recognize some of them as crotons. Find one you love and you'll have interesting, colorful foliage year-round. A few of my favorites include Gold Dust, which has dark green leaves that look like they have been splattered with yellow paint. The Oak Leaf Croton, which has lobed leaves that resemble the leaves of some oaks. The Andrew Croton, which has long green leaves streaked in a creamy white. And then there is the Zanzibar Croton, which looks like an ornamental grass with narrow arching leaves splashed in red, gold, orange, and purple. And the list truly goes on and on. There is a croton for every space. In-ground, potted, hanging basket, even indoors. Peace lilies are the next plant I want to discuss with you. And they're sort of like monsteras and other philodendrons. We think of them as houseplants, but in Florida, they are fantastic shade plants for the landscape. They pair so well with caladiums. I envision peace lilies along the back as a foundation plant with caladiums in the front as a smaller border plant. Or if gardening around a tree, start with the peace lilies. You can plant them right around the tree and then plant the caladiums on the outside around the peace lilies. Peace lilies will grow larger than the caladiums, so this ensures you get a nice view of everything. The peace lily is such a classic, majestic plant with glossy oval green leaves and graceful white blooms. And fun fact, peace lilies are not true lilies. They're in the arum family, native to tropical Central and South America. These plants naturally thrive on the forest floor, receiving dappled sunlight and consistent moisture and humidity. It comes as no surprise then that these plants love our Florida backyards. My next shade plant recommendation is ferns. Ferns add a lush, jungle-like feel to Florida gardens and need practically zero maintenance. We could go on and on about ferns because this is a huge group of hardy, prehistoric plants that thrive in shade gardens, but I'll keep it simple and narrow it down to a few of my favorites. The macho fern has to be at the top of my list for the landscape. It looks stunning planted around a tree or, if space permits, along a walkway. Macho ferns are large, beautiful ferns characterized by bold, bright, leathery green fronds. They are actually native to Florida and are one of the largest fern species, reaching a height of 3 to 4 feet with a spread of up to 6 feet in ideal conditions. Another one of my favorites is the sword fern. Sword ferns have long blades that sort of look like swords, hence the name. They create a large crown-shaped plant. The fronds are dark green and grow upright. And although technically not a true fern, the foxtail is one of my absolute favorites for the shade garden. I had a client nickname this plant Sideshow Bob, and it couldn't be more accurate. If you have never watched The Simpsons, you won't get the reference, but essentially they have fluffy plume-like stems resembling a foxtail, or Sideshow Bob hair, whichever image you prefer to conjure up. This fern is the smallest of the three we have discussed today, reaching a height and width of about 2 to 3 feet. Moving on to heliconias. Heliconias are like the little sister to the orange bird of paradise, except they bloom more often, in my opinion. Heliconias are perfect for creating a bold tropical effect in your yard. These easy-to-grow perennials show off some of the most exotic flowers, which are usually shades of red, orange, and yellow. There's a wide range of heliconia varieties, including some that grow to tree-like proportions. But the more common types typically stay around 4 to 6 feet tall. They add an eye-catching note to landscape beds and borders with their large leaves and colorful, interesting flowers. Okay, so you didn't think we were going to let foliage have all the fun, did ya? There are many flowers that do well in shade to semi-shade. Mona lavender is the first on the list. The best way to describe Mona lavender is it's the shade-loving version of purple salvia. It belongs to the mint family and has stunning lavender flower spikes and dark green, sometimes even purplish foliage. For those gardeners who love the look of a classic English cottage garden, hey, we may not be able to grow lavender with our high humidity levels, but this plant is a close second for the Florida shade garden, so take note. I also think Mona lavender looks stunning in a large pot with creeping jenny planted around it. Creeping Jenny is a trailing plant with chartreuse colored foliage. These two both do well in shade and moist soil, so it's a match made in heaven. Bleeding Heart Vine is the next one I want to discuss. This is one of my favorites if you want to max out flower power in a shady spot. While commonly trained as a vine, it can also be grown as a sprawling shrub. It's a versatile plant that can be trained to grow up on a trellis. I'm actually currently training Bleeding Heart Vine to grow up some palm trees for a client. I'm using twine to support the vine as it wraps around the palm trunks, as Bleeding Heart does not send out aerial roots like a vine such as English ivy does. Bleeding Heart Vine produces big clusters of showy flowers that are either white and red or purple and pink. I'm especially fond of the purple and pink. It's considered an ever-bloomer, and rightfully so, because it flowers continuously throughout the year, even in shade. I love, love, love this vine. Moving on to begonias. Begonias have come a long way, you guys. There are so many gorgeous, unique begonias on the market. Popular types of begonia include wax begonias, tuberous begonias, and rex begonias. Wax begonias are the most common. If you've seen a commercial landscape bed with begonias and you were underwhelmed, it was probably the wax. No offense, wax begonias. They're very hardy and do well in sun and shade. It makes them versatile for large commercial jobs. But with that being said, tuberous begonias are what made me fall in love with begonias as a whole. Tuberous begonias have large rose-like blossoms. Some even have double blossoms. They really do look like garden roses. Don't believe me? Google search begonia nonstop red. And one of my personal favorites is begonia sun pleasures apricot. Tuberous begonias are simply spectacular. They add a big pop of color and look great in shady gardens or in a patio pot. Last, but certainly not least, we have Crocandra. Their flower color reminds me of the original Flintstones Push Pops us 90 kids used to grab from the gas station. I think they were orange cream flavored, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know why, but I always think of those. Anyway, the Crocandra flowers are a yummy peach or apricot color, and the leaves are glossy green. This plant also goes by the nicknames orange marmalade and the firecracker flower. It sends spear-shaped spikes above its glossy, deep green foliage. The showy blooms emerge from these spears, starting at the bottom and moving to the top, creating horizontal stacks of petals. It's a very unique must-have plant for any shaded garden. And being native to southern India, this plant loves the humidity and heat, making it a perfect Florida plant. All right, that wraps up episode 13 of The Florida Gardener. We will see you soon for episode 14. And in the meantime, if you'd like to download one of my Etsy garden templates or check out my social, you can access everything through my website, rootsredefined.com. That's roots, R-O-O-T-S, redefined, REDEFINED.com. All right, thanks guys. We'll see you again soon.